Summer hard 2024 complete, as in like enjoy that summer. We're back to school. We're back to learning about investing. Is anyone investing in long-term rentals anymore? Alberta folks, I know you love it. But is anyone else in Ontario investing in long-term rentals? We'll talk about what we've been learning, what we will be learning at the Real Estate Resilience Summit, Business Edition. All this and more in this week's Truth About Real Estate Investing show for Canadians. I'm your producer and host, Erwin Cito, since 2016. And we are back. We are finally back. We've taken a few weeks off, busy doing summering hard, spending time with the kids, enjoying what little summer we have in Canada. The Bank of Canada just made their third consecutive rate cut of 0.25% after what has been the quietest summer of real estate in my career. I've been on since 2005, and I've been an investor specialist realtor since 2010. I'm a real estate geek. I check House Sigma often, just like everybody else does. I like to know what's going on in my neighborhood. I like to know what's going on in the neighborhoods where I own property and where my clients own property, whatnot. For anyone who's in real estate, who's a friend of mine, knows I don't shut up about real estate. So if you are a real estate investor, we always have much to talk about and I have many questions to ask. Anyways, the market has spoken from my understanding. Rental properties as investments in Ontario are really out of favor. The most I've ever seen in my career. And that's across the board. I have friends with very nice apartment buildings for sale receiving no showings. I'm seeing the most lopsided investor imbalance of listing selling versus buying. All the balance is on the listing and selling side. Folks have properties listed and they're selling them or they're not. There are very little buyers out there. What little buyers out there that I'm seeing from the more sophisticated investor community, what I'm seeing is they're buying mostly student rentals because university students naturally turn themselves over. And then my point to what I was asking earlier, is anyone investing in long-term rentals anymore? In Alberta, lots of them. Rest of the Canada, not so much, it seems. The listings of rental properties locally has never been this slow, again, in my experience. And the once popular with in the markets that were once popular with investors and for apartment buildings. Now, we're going to be talking about Elizabeth Kelly's Real Estate Resilience Summit, Business Edition, and it couldn't have come at a better time as Canadian investors have never had a harder time of finding opportunities. I have this discussion almost every day as I take calls from Canadians all across the country who tell me they can't find opportunity. I was having dinner with a coach recently who informed me that it's been months since she's seen a deal that's worth putting her own money into. On the flip side, we had Cher. Cher is a tech-enabled asset manager who, in my experience, makes building a fully managed rental portfolio the easiest I've ever seen. Fortunately or unfortunately, that can only happen in the USA thanks to the size of their economy, which is the fastest growing in the G7, combined with low taxes and landlord friendliness. I was literally telling my little cousin about a deal I was reviewing in Kansas City. He's actually looking to invest. He's in real estate. His dad, my uncle, was a really big time broker before he retired a couple of years ago. Point is, he knows a deal when he sees one, and he's my family. So everyone takes care of their family, don't they? Anyways, back to the deal. An off-market 1,200 square foot bungalow, 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, built in the 1950s. Most investors across Canada know this is your typical property. So typical investment property, because this is the type of property that folks target for basement suite conversions. Now, in Ontario, in the popular markets for basement suite conversions, that type of house, a 1,200 square foot bungalow, would cost around 600, somewhere in the high 600s to low 700s. And target investor markets like a Hamilton, an Oshawa, Barrie, Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge. And I know folks in Alberta look for the same type of property as well for their mortgage helpers, and same with folks in BC. Anyways, back to this Kansas City deal in Missouri. The price from the wholesaler, so there's no realtors involved, the price from the wholesaler, including their fee, is $152,000. That's American dollars. $152,000 including the wholesale fee. Renovation quote to bring the property up to being rent ready from the property manager is $20,000. Projected rent, $1,300 per month, plus utilities. For Canadian investors who've been around a while, it's like we've turned back the clock over 10 years on what these numbers look like. We would get these types of numbers back somewhere around 13, 14 years ago back in Hamilton, for example, which is where most of my experience is. For capitalization rate, for those who understand commercial real estate, we're talking about a 5.9% cap rate on a single family home. And it's not a very expensive property, so you don't have to come out of pocket that much in order to do this deal. I have a third-party home inspection report from a home inspector. I have a renovation quote, extremely detailed, from the property manager. And personally, I have the comfort level that I can do this deal from the comfort of my home. I've personally attended 100 home inspections for my own clients. I have enough comfort with home construction. Anyways, this type of deal can be done as an operationally passive side hustle. The only thing that keeps this property investment from being fully passive is that the investor still has to deal with their own mortgages, which is the way you want things to be. You want to be in control. If you don't believe me, just read the news and look at who's losing their shirts, who's going bankrupt, who's owing $30 million to $100 million, whatever. Anyways, all those folks have lost control. I am a bit of a control freak when it comes to my investments. Anyways, I do think it's wonderful that my developer friends, folks who do flips, I think it's all wonderful. I personally am happy when I see people successful, as long as they're not hurting anyone. But personally, I don't want to invest that much time and effort into those types of strategies. I was literally speaking to a new friend of mine at the golf course who does he does kitchens and bathrooms. So he works for investors who do flips in Oakville, Ontario. So I can't even imagine the type of capital these folks are throwing around on $1 million, $2 million properties and doing flips. And then like the realtor fees and the rental budgets, like holy cow. Anyways, also again, myself being risk averse, I personally would not choose a strategy where the financing linchpin is the CMHC, a government institution. Who has been known to change their mind from time to time. For those strategies, I'll have experts in those fields. Again, I have no experience in that field of getting CMHC or MLI Select and stuff like that. But I'll happily have experts in those fields as guests on my show, like upcoming guest, best-selling co-author Russell Westcott, who's from BC, but he invests in Edmonton, and he's developing small multifamilies all the time, brand new ones. And the numbers sound fantastic. But he also invests a lot more time, money, and effort than I'm willing to do, especially being out of market. Anyways, there's no right or wrong in real estate. It's really just what fits you for the best. Now, I did say there's no right or wrong in real estate, but there is a wrong. Losing money. That is wrong. I'm not saying never lose money. Most investors, every investor who's been around for a while has lost money on a deal or two or three or four. What's more important is over the long run, they make money. Makes sense, right? Now, I'll read you a quote from one of my newer clients who I've been trying to help coach out of a jam that they got themselves into before they ever met me. This is what they wrote me this week. Quote, "Hey, Erwin, just wanted to let you know that every day I'm grateful for your wisdom and about my private lens. I ignored red flags and I didn't act fast enough, so things are still quite painful. But we would have been wiped out if you hadn't shared your concerns with me. Thank you beyond words," end quote. Also this week, I've been congratulating one of my longtime clients who he helped sell their income property in the GTA and realize over $500,000 in capital gains, which everyone knows is taxed better than lending interest, interest that you earn on lending money. Anyways, it should be no surprise that the long-term real estate investor is winning even in this market. Maybe they make as much money if they sold at the peak, but is anyone upset over a $500,000 plus capital gain? Anyways, where I was going with is that going forward, I fully expect my clients and I to translate our success that we've done in Ontario to landlord-friendly USA. My only hope is to reach out and educate as many people as possible so they can be successful like my long-term clients. Speaking of education, I'm offering a free webinar, a Real Estate 101 Investing on September 17th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Anyone new to real estate investing or new to US investing should attend this. So if you have friends or family interested in investing, they need to attend this so they can at least compare any and all opportunities that they review against what a single family house, rental property in landlord friendly USA can do, like the property I just mentioned in Kansas City, Missouri. For a retail investment, as an investment that an everyday investor can do, I have yet to see a comparable property in Canada for a retail investment that an everyday investor can do. Again, operationally passive. I review deals all the time, and again, from my experience, it's really tough to beat shares offering for a fully managed, for being fully managed from acquisition to ongoing management to disposition. And when compared to any condo or duplex in Canada, there really is no comparison, especially if it's in Ontario, BC, or Quebec, where landlords have little rights. On to this week's show. Award-winning investor, coach, speaker, educator, and proud entrepreneur, my old friend Elizabeth Kelly. We're old friends because she likes to tell it like it is. Elizabeth shares about her wins and losses in real estate. She's been an active leader in the community for nearly 20 years, and she's here to tell us about how we Canadian real estate investors can be resilient, what she sees for our collective futures in real estate, and she's hosting the 3rd annual Real Estate Resilience Business Edition of the Summit on September 28th and 29th. That's a Saturday and Sunday. Myself and Cher are proud sponsors of the summit. We'll be joining an expert panel on USA investing with friend of the show, Glenn Sutherland. I'm really honored to be that Glenn and I are sharing a panel together, and many folks out there consider us the leading voices on this subject, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. My wife, the lovely Cherry Chan, will be a speaker as well, and I'm super excited for the other speakers that they have planned. And again, this is business summit. This is a business edition summit, but there are the gentleman from Hawaii, really interested in hearing what he has to say about real estate investing because he's got a lovely portfolio in Hawaii. Anyways, and a very sizable one too. On today's show, Elizabeth shares her personal journey from mega real estate investor to an entrepreneur adjacent to real estate, the challenges of affordability for investing in local markets, even after learning the hard way back in 2010, where she and her husband Emmett, bought over 100+ units and struggles with systems and operations. This is why you need to be resilient, you need to take that, and what you'll learn at the summit will be largely around systems and operations so that you can thrive with these types of businesses and portfolios. Anyways, any and all investors should give this episode a listen to learn how to both win in real estate and avoid losing, which in my humble opinion is another way of winning. For more information on the Real Estate Resilience Summit, go to realestateresilience.ca. Please enjoy the show. Hi, Elizabeth. What's keeping you busy these days?
Not too much. I'm actually taking some time off and enjoying the summer. I'm loving things. How about you? What are you up to?
Trying to do a little the same, but it's really busy, so I kind of don't want to take too much time off, like while the iron's hot.
You
I'm
got some
okay when the
exciting
sun is
things
shining,
going on.
right? Which is
Yeah,
funny because that's not the same for most of the community.
no, it's been really quiet for real estate investors. Surprisingly quiet. Facebook's quiet, social media in general is quiet, but
Mhm.
even people taking action has been really quiet. Mortgage brokers are reporting it's quiet, realtors, everyone across the board. Investors are quiet these days. What do you think they're up to?
I think they all see a lot of what I see, a lot of lack of investor interest. Just to give data points, for example, like we're seeing vacant duplexes in Hamilton just sit, which would never
Mm,
happen in the last 10 years. This is the first time ever, really. So we used to think that vacant would be marketable enough,
mhm.
but it's not. And a friend of mine posted about his Kitchener research showing that a tenanted property sells for $60,000 less than a tenanted property. It also is a
That's
difference of like
significant.
30 days on market, from like 20 something days to sell for a non-tenanted property versus like 50+ days to sell for a tenanted property. Um, so that tells me the market is not interested in investment property, even house hacking. So my
Yep.
original investment theory of duplexes would be a wonderful liquid asset, as liquid as it gets for real estate, thinking that people would always want a house hack. is proven incorrect in this current market. So what's an investor, agent, or mortgage person to do when investor appetite has dried up? And that's just small stuff. Like I think we both know lots of apartment building owners who have very slow movement on refinance or for sale of their apartment buildings. So
Yeah.
it's slow.
I and I don't So I had a rent to own a couple of weeks ago that was available, and I've always had a lineup of people. I've never ever had a challenge finding an investor.
Mhm,
And this rent to own, this was a little guy. This was a mortgage of 450, six
mhm,
hundred and some dollars a month in cash flow. Like it was a great little opportunity,
mhm,
and I was willing to be the active partner, take care of everything. Just
mhm,
come in, qualify for the mortgage, bring in 80K.
mhm.
And
That's
it
it.
was a
Just
struggle.
bring in
Yeah,
80K. That's it.
that's it. It was a struggle. It was not I've never had so many conversations and people so nervous about taking action, and I think it's because there's so much money that's tied up or missing or that people aren't confident that they're gonna get back,
Mhm,
right now that it just money isn't turning over the way that it did for years, and if you've been investing, I mean, you look at the lifespan of an investor, most people think, "Well, I've been investing for 10 years. I'm one of the OGs here." But the last 15 years were a heyday for investors,
mhm.
and the 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 downside always comes calling at some point.
Yeah, and it seems we're there. It doesn't help that a lot of people are looking at mortgage renewals on their homes as well. So
Yeah,
I think the broader market's affected as well. It's definitely interesting out there.
yeah. I mean, to me, it means that we should be focusing on cash flow, which we should always be focusing on. But if you're struggling right now with a situation where you're not positively cash flowing on your investment properties, I believe that it's a great opportunity to get out there and look for cash flow from another means.
And what do you mean by that?
Or or look for a different investment strategy. Like right now for me, my apartment buildings, I've been socked with a couple of big bills. I had a big plumbing bill that I had to deal with, and then I had a big roof repair that I had to deal with. And that kind of took a good chunk of my cash flow the last little while. But the one investment that's continued to grow for me has been my commercial building, where
Mhm.
I do short-term rentals and I don't have to deal with the Residential Tenancy Act. I don't have to deal with some of the challenges of the long-term um, when you're providing housing for people versus somewhere for them to come and stay for a little while they're in town to work. It's a very different game. And if things get quiet, then I focus more on marketing. I've listed some units on Airbnb as a way to increase the traffic in the building and have more people find out about us before they come to town. And I just feel like it's given me my control back, and that's one of my most important things. The reason why I fell in love with real estate was I could buy a single family home, and I could turn it into a duplex, and I could force the value, and then I could refinance and pull it out and go somewhere and do it again and be able to provide homes for 2 people that were affordable. And it doesn't have the same feeling anymore that it used to. And I came through 2008, so I know what it's like to go through a downturn. This one feels heavier to me though. Do you see that too?
I think it'll naturally be heavier because just the way affordability is now. Because of
Mm,
the run up over the last 10, 15. Well, honestly, since 2008, we've been on a since serious bull run.
yeah,
So I don't know how people get into the market now just because the numbers are so big. Now, some
they are.
clarifying questions from what you just mentioned. You mentioned commercial property, so that means that's multifamily, right?
No, so it used to be a seniors home in Kirkland Lake.
Okay.
We bought it in, I want to say 2012. It was 2012, and it had been vacant for 10 years. So we worked on it and we kind of got it back up and running. A lot of the plumbing was broken, just
Hmm.
issues all over the place. The heating system wasn't working. And we took the spaces and we converted them into rooms. So before COVID, we had a dance studio in there and we had a restaurant. The hair salon is still there. We're exploring our options with doing other things. I looked at self storage for a while. I thought that would be great. I think our market is kind of capped out for self-storage, so I'm looking for some other options. But right now, my bread and butter for the business is people coming to Kirkland Lake who need somewhere to stay, for a couple of weeks or a couple of months while they're in town working. And
Hmm.
it's worked out so well. We have shared kitchens, so people don't have to eat fast food all the time. We are a more cost-effective option than a hotel. So people are thrilled. They come and stay with us. We provide housekeeping, weekly housekeeping, and Wi-Fi and parking are included. So we're kind of an all-in-one building, and
Hmm.
it works for us. It works for the
Hmm.
community. It's really we identified the opportunity from analyzing the need.
And I think that's often lost on real estate investors because I think partly is that what you're talking about is not really an investment; it's a business. Like I
Mm,
treat my investment portfolio as a business. Like I
yes.
came to the decision to be a real estate investor as a business. Doing SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Like, you have something that's in high demand. It's going to generally perform well. That's what business is.
Hmm.
Now, again, like here, you've identified business opportunity, and my point is again, like many people forget that. Like it's this, and this was not. This doesn't sound passive at all.
Yeah, and I don't know that people forget it so much as when people are new to investing, they just don't realize it.
That's fair.
It
Yeah.
becomes, you're focused on the concept of, learning leverage and, I can take the equity in my home and I can use this to generate money. And they don't realize, hey, guess what? Now you have to learn taxation and accounting. Now you need to learn bookkeeping and HR, and you
Yeah.
need to, know the Residential Tenancy Act
Yeah.
inside and out. You need to know how to vet people for your power team. Like
Sounds like a business.
a lot of people really think, I mean, this is touted as passive, and especially when you're starting out, it's not passive. It's
Mhm.
very active.
Yeah, and then can you make this passive? Can you hire someone to take over the day to day, or you already done that?
Well, I do. I mean, with my property management company, I don't know, I think I had 15 staff at my bits at my biggest, but then you're just managing people. And
And
even if you
I've done
decide
that job. It's not the easiest.
no.
If
And
anyone
even
thinks
if you decide
tenant law is tough, like look at employment law. it's
yep.
it's pretty. In my experience, employment law is generally favors the employee. No different than tenant law. It's generally favoring the tenant.
Yeah. And this isn't to say that people shouldn't invest in real estate. I think what I'd like people to understand is that this is a challenging time to invest, which
Mhm.
doesn't mean you shouldn't. And quite honestly, there is a lot of wisdom in the saying that, do the opposite of what people are doing. So if people aren't investing right now, there are definitely some tremendous offers. Like there's
Mhm.
a house up the street for us that was listed for almost 1.3. It finally sold at 1.01. They got a steal. That house is definitely worth more than that.
Mhm.
But then there's other people, there's someone just down the street who bought a house for 1.1, and now they now have it listed for rent for 33.50 a month.
That's it.
That's
3350.
it.
That sounds low.
Yeah. 1.1 for 33.50. Like there's no way they're making money. There's no way. So if that's your investment model, you need to rethink it.
They gotta flip that thing soon.
I don't know. I don't know what the thought was behind it. I haven't met the buyers, but um, it's important to know your numbers and understand what you're signing up for. And there are
Mhm.
definitely deals out there right now. There are definitely people who are motivated because stuff is sitting, but you have to have a plan and you have to know you're getting into a business. So you need that business plan for how you're going to make money and how you're going to make things work.
Mhm. Mhm. So the general trend, what I'm noticing is from guests on the show, and this is not a popular opinion among realtors and mortgage people, is, is so many people are getting away from long-term tenants when it
Yeah.
comes to Canada generally, BC, Ontario, Quebec. I don't
Hmm.
know much about the other provinces. Uh, is what are you seeing? I mean, like for context, I think everyone knows you have a lot of past coaching clients. You're one of the best known coaches in the business. What are you seeing among your clientele? Is my observation? Do you see similar things?
I do. I think it's important that if you're going to move away from long-term tenants, you need to understand the repercussions of that. So you
Hmm.
need to understand that financing is definitely more challenging to
Hmm.
obtain. Um, it definitely, the theory is it gives you more control. I think it does because I have both. I have both, and I have a problem right now in one of my apartment buildings, and I don't know what's going on with the tenant upstairs, but I don't know if it's mental health or if it's, something else, but continuing ongoing disturbances. And I have other tenants who are threatening to leave. My hands are tied. There's really not much I can do. I mean, I can ask them to continue to call the cops when there's issues, but the cops don't want to deal with it. Um, there's not much I can do. I have a very disruptive tenant who's causing issues for everyone else in the building.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there's no consequences for that. And as a landlord, I would shy away right now from larger buildings because the smaller ones, from a property management perspective, I tend to have a lot less issues in my smaller buildings because there's just less shared space. There's less crossover, there's less common areas.
Again, that'll be an unpopular opinion among many realtors and mortgage people.
I know. I'm okay with being unpopular. I don't
or
need to be
apartment
liked
building
by
gurus.
everyone. I'm talking from 20 years as an investor and 15 years as a large scale property manager. I find that my smaller buildings typically present less issues.
Yeah, so when people ask me why I'm back in the single family, that's exactly why. I have no
Yeah.
tenant conflict.
Yeah.
Right?
When there's poop outside on the lawn, you know exactly whose dog it belongs to, right? Like it's not tenants all pointing the finger at each other. It's literally
Yeah,
like you're the only person with access to this property. So it's
yeah,
you.
yeah. I had a tenant who has anxiety issues, so he'd regularly smoke weed in the back corner of the property, and the upstairs tenant would
Mhm.
complain, like, "What do you want me to do? He's exercising his human right."
Yeah. Yeah. It's his right. He can do what he wants.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and but the point is if it's only one tenant, there's no one complaining. And I think that's another
Exactly.
thing that beginners forget about is that they don't know what experienced investors know is that typically your top problem is inter-tenant conflict
Yeah,
as a landlord.
absolutely. And you can't, I mean, everybody's on their best behavior when they're applying. That's really the only time when you have any control over who is going to be in your unit. And I think people get really fixated on the numbers
Hmm.
and it's, go big or go home. And I want this size apartment building and this scale and I want to grow to this. And it's okay to be smaller and to say one building a year for 10 years is going to change the trajectory of my life for me and my kids. And it's okay to sell. If you're in a situation where you've got some other stuff going on, maybe your mortgages payments have gone up and, it's you're really being squeezed, it's okay to turn around and sell so that you have the capital to be able to withstand the downtimes. The idea is not to become a property hoarder. The idea is to have these little piggy banks that you can access if you need to in the future when the going gets tough.
Hmm.
There's no shame in selling.
Yeah, something got lost along the way. Like the current generation of investors, like folks who started like within the last 5 years, they were not. Their goal was well beyond one building per year. Can you talk to that? Because
Yeah.
you've had to pick up the pieces for a lot of these folks who belong to guru groups.
I picked up the pieces from us too. My husband and I fell victim to that mentality in 2010. I don't know, we must have bought 100 and some units that year. Um, and you grow so quickly and there's so much going on that you can't keep up with it. You can't create the systems and processes. You can't find the people to help you sustain that and the
Hmm.
cracks start to show. I
Hmm.
mean, you can't like I don't know, are we allowed to talk about live stuff, ongoing stuff?
Sure.
So are we allowed to talk about the whole I don't know if you want to pause the recording and verify, but are we allowed to talk about like the Dylan Suter situation and how that happened?
It's up to you because it's like you have your own stories because you've transacted with them.
Yeah, but I think looking at it from the outside, and I don't know these people. All I know is that they bought a couple of buildings from us. But what I've found when it comes to investors is that systems and processes tell the story. So if the systems and processes are not in place, then it is indicative of what's going on in the rest of the operation.
Oh yeah.
So
Where there's smoke,
if
there's
someone
fire.
buys, yeah, If someone buys a building and it takes them 120 days or 90 days to pick up keys, and tenants are calling and saying, it's been 2 months and I still don't know where I'm paying my rent to.
Yeah,
And,
and they're
we're
snowed in.
drowning in snow here and there's no one who's plowing. The heat's off. We're getting disconnection notices on the utilities. Like, if you start to see stuff like that, it means that there's systems and processes lacking on building turnover, and that probably indicates that there's other issues that are happening as well.
Yeah, like I said, there's
So,
smoke, there's fire. No, sorry, Elizabeth, can you back up a little bit?
yeah,
So from your portfolio, Dylan bought properties from properties for sale of yours.
yeah, a couple of our multis.
What year was this?
2022?
Okay, so not that long ago.
No.
And then you heard tenants were reaching out to you past, so not no longer your tenants, but do
Sorry,
you
maybe
even
it was
know who was managing for
2021.
them? Did he keep you on to
Uh,
manage them, or
no.
he transitioned to his
No,
own?
we actually wanted to. I was happy to keep managing them because we had good relationships with the tenants. We knew the buildings. We knew he didn't have anybody local in town.
Uh-huh.
Um,
And sorry, and just to
and
back that up as well, you started your own property management company in Kirkland Lake because you couldn't find a PM either.
yeah, we
So if
worked
you
with some
can't
of the
find
local
one, how is he
PMs.
finding one?
Well, he was bringing his people in from outside. Like, I think there was someone in Timmins that he was using to manage like
Excuse
his
me?
properties.
How far apart are these cities?
Timmins is like an hour and 15. And again, I'm trying to piece things together, right? Like, I don't know these people. I don't have their phone numbers. I'm just trying to piece together from what I saw from an external perspective.
An hour 50 per Google Maps as of right now. 140 kilometers. Timmins to Kirkland Lake. All right, sorry, I interrupted. Continue.
It's okay. Um, so when you start to see things like that, then you start to there are times where, as a business, you grow very quickly, and it can be challenging to keep up with your systems and processes. It can be challenging to make sure that you have the right people in place. And I see it a lot with my clients who are realtors, my clients who are mortgage brokers, where the volume of business has to grow to a critical mass before you have the financial capacity to take on another staff person to take some of that load off. So typically, the customer service that your business is providing will suffer during that time. So it's hard to tell from the outside whether that's what's happening or whether it's legitimately, hey, we don't have any of the infrastructure in place that needs to be there to manage all of that. And growing very quickly and aggressively, there's a whole process that should happen. When you buy a building, there's a ton of admin with changing all the accounts over, setting everything up, getting all the tenants uploaded into your systems and processes, your software, everything else. So it's not the kind of thing, unless you have a big team, it's not going to happen quickly and easily. So when you see people acquiring multiple buildings a month, they either need to have a really strong team or there's the potential in the future for things to be a little bit bumpy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you and I already saw cracks in that business before they ever made the news.
Yeah.
And then no one ever reference checked with you or I.
I don't know that people, and this is part of the thing, like, at some point, I think as humans, we make decisions based on our emotion. And I find myself doing it. I looked at this rent to own, and there were some things that I, kind of raised little red flags for me, but I wanted to do this really badly. I wanted to do this rent to own. And I said to myself, no matter what, I'm an experienced investor. I can handle this. If things don't go according to plan, I've got plan B, C, D, E, and F. And I'm like, but wait a second. Just because you can handle it doesn't mean that you should ignore those little warning signs, those little red flags. And I think sometimes as new investors, that's what we tend to do. We get a little emotional. We like people. We see what people are doing. We get excited about it. And then we fail to step back and say, if I was doing proper due diligence on someone, what should I be doing? It would make sense if I was investing in a building. I would contact somebody independently to do an appraisal, an independent realtor, I'd have, somebody at least, hey, drive by the building and tell me that it's there. And I'm not putting anybody at fault who has invested money with someone based on trust. Like I'm not trying to hurt people when they're already down. But I think as a community, we need to do a better job of asking the tough questions. And as borrowers, which I am, we need to do a better job of saying, I expect you to ask me this question. Here's full transparency. This is what it is. Like my commercial building, I don't have traditional financing on it. An appraisal is $20,000. So I have continued to work with people
Holy
who
cow.
I know and care about, and I have private money on my building. I've owned it for 10 years. Most people could and should not do that. But that's what works for me. I like working with people who I know and who I trust.
Mhm. Yeah, but you have a lot more qualifying criteria to build trust than
And
unfortunately
how's
the folks
any
who are out a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on in the world of real estate right now, and I think we need to do a better job as investors of protecting ourselves by asking the right questions.
Mhm.
And I wish there were more of the big companies and the big organizations teaching people that.
That's tough out there.
It is. I feel for new investors because it's not like, I mean, when we started in 2005, I started, I didn't we just social media wasn't a thing. Like we didn't know then what we knew now. There wasn't this, communication around the world. There wasn't this, when you learn things, you had learned it the hard way, or you had done the research, or I mean, now we have instant access to a ton of information, but now we have no way to verify it.
On the flip side, though, like for example, there's a coach who's failing out there who's well promoted by their network. Like I saw her deals years ago, and I knew that it was doomed to fail. Again, I think I don't know what it is. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think there's a lot of people who can't qualify a deal. So then you got to think, what are they paying all that money for coaching if they don't know how to qualify a deal?
Yeah, but I think sometimes again, people, you're on social media and you see someone and they look like they're successful, or they look like they're doing really well, or they're talking about how amazing they are. And people go, yeah, okay, I want to believe that. I think most humans fundamentally want to believe the good in people. They don't want to believe that they're going to hire someone who's not going to teach them what they need to know about how to run their business. And I think that kind of takes me to where I'm heading now, which is I want my control back.
Mhm.
I'm tired of giving away my power to everybody else, and I want my control back.
What are you doing to get your control back?
I'm I'm still gonna be coaching on real estate for people who want to learn, but I want to focus as well on people who wanna start active businesses, people who want to generate income, people who wanna say, "You know what? I don't wanna work here forever. I wanna transition out of my job. Maybe I wanna go on maternity leave and I wanna have a side hustle so that I don't have to go back afterwards." People who say, I know this, or I can do this,
Hmm.
and all I need to do is tell people about it,
Hmm.
and then I'll have the opportunity to be able to take charge of my income.
Yeah, wait till you come to EO, and I'll introduce you to some of my friends who bought businesses. It's it's life changing for many. It's a
It
lot of
is.
money too. For
And
not to say
I
it's
don't
easy or that everyone makes it, but man, the
know.
people who make it.
And I'm not talking about people like I love and I admire people who want to buy businesses. I'm talking about people who have a love, they have a passion, they have a vision, and
Hmm.
they just don't know how to start. They
Hmm.
have a transferable skill set that would be really in demand, but right now they're trading the security of, in theory anyways, going into the office for 2 weeks and getting a paycheck at the end of it for the freedom of being able to work as and when needed. So right now, my in-laws, they're in they're 85 now, and unfortunately, their health is declining. It's declining really rapidly, and we have multiple doctor's appointments a week. We get calls from them where we need to drop everything and go over. And I look to my husband and I go, "Could you imagine if we worked for somebody else and you and I were both at offices and we couldn't be there?
Hmm.
It would be heartbreaking. I mean, how many people are there who want to be there more for their families and don't have the capacity to do that because they're stuck somewhere that they don't even necessarily want to be?
Hmm.
So I want to help those people.
Hmm. A lot of people looking for help. I think a lot of people just don't even know where to start. The whole buying a
Yeah,
business. So sorry, but even starting a business, both are complicated. I actually think
they
that.
can be, but I like to keep things really simple. Like
Hmm.
I think we don't have to make it complicated, at least
Hmm.
initially. Once we kind of figure out the landscape, what we're offering, where it would fit, is there a need for it? Like there's a lot of due diligence you should do before you even start a business. And I don't think people realize that. You need to make sure that there's a market, that there's demand, that you have the right skill set. There's a lot of analysis to do even before you
Hmm.
say, okay, I'm starting this business, and yet you buy your domain.
Yeah, it's like valuations, for example, is so different compared to real estate.
Mhm,
Like when we're looking at businesses to buy, it's so different. And now I'm having these conversations almost every week or so. Just friends who are looking at businesses just to evaluate their own businesses or looking to acquire businesses. It is
mhm,
so different valuing a business compared to any piece of real estate.
yeah. So what is it that you have seen in your experience that are the number one drivers of valuation for a business?
For example, like professional services and recurring revenues. Like if you're
Mhm,
a professional service that has significant recurring revenues, like an accounting firm, your
mhm.
valuation is so much higher, and you have so many more buyers, right?
Which makes a lot of
Versus
sense, and that's how Cherry structures hers, right? Where
yes,
there's a monthly fee, and that
monthly
drives the value of the
fees,
business.
regular recurring income. In their line of on the line of business, people need to file their taxes every year, so that's people generally have to do it every year. But then there's like haircutting businesses where people need to get a haircut every 3 weeks, 2 months, whatever. But the recurring income.
Mhm.
But a lot of people can do that business, so the barrier of entry are very low. So
Yeah.
then that your valuation is completely different for a business like that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think a lot of businesses waste money on marketing when if they put a little more time and energy into making sure their existing clients were happy
Yep.
and converting the marketing budget into a loyalty type program, I think that they would have a lot more returning clients and a lot more happy people, so they
Hmm.
wouldn't need to spend as much time marketing and recruiting new people.
Yeah. Retention is generally. I think everyone knows retaining a client is cheaper than acquiring a new client. Now we kind of touched on this just briefly. Starting a new business versus buying. What are your thoughts?
I have I mean, I haven't bought a business myself personally. My preference is always to start fresh. I feel like when you buy businesses, I mean, you're buying potential problems, you're buying liabilities, but you're paying for not having to be part of that initial growth phase, which
Hmm.
is can be some really heavy lifting.
Hmm.
I personally absolutely love that feeling of seeing a vision and a plan come to fruition. I find it energizing and exciting. So many of my clients have done it. They've started rent to own companies, they've started property management companies. And so seeing them, do their first deal, it's like real estate, it's adjacent to real estate, but it's you can create that ongoing sustainable income through, property management fees and some
Hmm.
of other different the different investment models that they've chosen. But I don't know. I have an affinity for starting my own because I have these visions and these ideas in my head
Hmm.
that I want to make happen.
Hmm.
And I don't know that I would see the same thing if I was buying a business. Tell me what you love about buying though, because you prefer to buy versus start, don't you?
That's largely a strategic decision, though. No different than real estate. It's real estate winter. It's business
Mhm.
buying winter as well. A lot of people don't have cash and credit.
Mhm.
So when like being strategic means doing the opposite of what everyone else is doing, like you said. So there's a lot of people selling businesses, but there's like no buyers. And a lot of these businesses don't have plans for the next generation. Typically, the
Yes.
kids don't want it,
Yes.
right? So you have a glut of sellers, and if you can be a buyer, then you can make a lot more of the. You can negotiate a lot more. for example, like Victoria, Clooney was on the show, they did a share purchase,
Hmm.
right? So she bought the shares of the company. So she assumes everything, the employment
Yes.
contracts, any contracts they have, the debt, everything.
Hmm.
But again, if you're able to negotiate, you can just buy the assets. And you can buy the
Yeah.
assets, for example, for 10 cents on the dollar and not assume any of the debt.
And I'd always prefer, if I was going to buy, I think I'd always prefer to buy a business that had real estate as part of it. Like I wouldn't want to buy a business that was renting
Mm-hmm.
a space.
It
I would want to
depends though.
buy, I
Because if you're
want the
buying something in
stability of it.
Ontario, if you're buying something in the Golden Horseshoe, you're paying to the nose for that piece of property. And
Yeah.
maybe, and again, it's case by case. Like, for example, if it's office space, you may not want
Hmm.
it. Because strategically,
Yes.
office space is a very weak position in the current
Mm.
market, or retail, depending on where. For example, I had a friend call me looking for a referral for a leasing agent for retail in Hamilton. I'm like, I think the vacancy for retail in Hamilton is like 50%. So
Ooh,
that may
that's
not be the piece
intense.
of real estate you want. But for example, if you're industrial, there's a good chance you might want it, right? But
Yeah.
industrial in Ontario, Golden Horseshoe would be a lot of money. So it's not the easiest decision. Pretty much, I think every business owner in industrial would want their real estate. They may not be able to afford it.
Yeah. I think it's easier to start businesses that are service based because the startup costs are so much lower. Like you're
Mm-hmm,
talking about retail, or you're talking about retail and some of the industrial stuff. There's a lot of costs involved because you need the inventory.
mm-hmm,
Whereas, it costs a few $1,000s to start a property management company
mm-hmm,
or, to become a mortgage broker and start your own business that way.
mm-hmm,
It doesn't require the heavy capital that some of the other types of businesses do.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, I think it's case by case, and it depends. Like for example,
Mhm.
Wade was on my show. Wade Graham. He was like, that was years ago when he bought his float canware business, a float,
Mm,
those float tanks, and he
mhm.
shared how he paid pennies on the dollar, like I think like 15 cents. Just say it's like 15 cents on the dollar for the
Yeah.
equipment, right? And he negotiated a seller take back mortgage.
Mhm.
So out of the profits of the company, he was able to pay off his loan, right? But again, he only bought the assets. He assumed nothing else, just the lease. And now he just recently announced he bought the building he was in,
Good for him.
right? So again,
That's
it's case by
fantastic.
case. And again, if what it's largely strategic. Like for example, for someone who like really wants a restaurant or a gym, personally, if it was me, I would wait to buy a failed one. Because then you can take over their brand equity, right? You can buy all their equipment for like 30 cents on the dollar, for example, right? Rather
Mhm.
than starting new. And again, it's case by case. It depends on what people are interested in for business, right? Sometimes that client list, for example, is worth a lot of money, right? Maybe it's worth a lot of money to you, not worth a lot to someone else. So again, strategic, right? But starting
Yeah.
up, yeah, it's something. Well, you're starting up with no systems and operations. That's tricky too.
It is, but I find that there's a lot that you can replicate. So, for example, I have a full suite of documents if someone wants to start a property management company that
Mhm,
I share with my clients. So it gives them a foundation of systems and processes. But you can take that and you can use that. I find as long as you have an aptitude for starting systems and processes, then it
mhm,
doesn't really matter what you're applying it to. You're just
mhm.
going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
Like I find even Emmett and I are working on renovating our house. And, I take the same systems and processes. Okay, we're going to use Google Keep. We've got it each day of the week, and we're going to go in and we're going to put in what we're going to do. And we have a running list of all the tasks that need to be done. And, if we have more time in a day and we finished all our things on our to do list, then we're going to go down to our running list and pick something and move it up. I use that same system and process in all of my
Mhm,
businesses.
mhm.
And I
Yes,
use the
absolutely.
same
There's
people.
transferable skills.
Yeah.
But you're out there. How many people have that skill set? How many people want to
I
put in that kind of effort too? For example, all these people who invested passively, quote unquote, passively into private mortgages, right? They just wanted passive. They didn't necessarily want a business. But again, that's not your clientele.
Well, I mean, I do teach private lending, but I teach a lot about due diligence on private lending.
Hmm,
Like,
hmm,
I really want to know what other assets are back there. I mean, I assume when I do private lending, I
hmm.
assume I'm not going to get my money back. And
Hmm.
I work from that basic premise.
Hmm.
I'm not there going, oh, I'm going to get, $1,500 a month. This is going to be great. I assume that I'm not going to get it back. So I'm already making sure that if, plan A doesn't happen, what's plan B? Well, plan
Hmm.
B is, I'm secured over here. And again, I don't do prom notes. I don't do unsecured lending. But I'm already saying, what happens if the market drops and my, the value that I believed was there when I closed is not there? What are my other options and opportunities? Who are these people? I mean, I think sometimes we get sucked in by saying, oh, this person has a big presence on social media, so they must be good, without actually saying, hey, can you show me a statement that shows me, what properties you have in your name, or
Hmm.
what your net worth is, or, what your taxes are? Sometimes when you ask the right questions and somebody gets angry, then that can be as much of an indicator.
Hmm.
I remember there's somebody who is part of a failed company, a very publicly failed company, and someone went to her and asked for financial statements. And I remember how angry she got at them. And she said, if you need to ask for financial statements, then then I don't want to borrow your money, and you need to go and find somewhere else, because that's not how I operate. And they were so upset, and they were like, oh, I did something wrong. And I'm like, no, you did something right,
Yeah.
because then the business went under.
It's like when landlords are screening tenants and they refuse to fill out a credit report. Like, that's a good thing.
Yeah, when people self-select themselves out of your world,
Yeah.
don't believe it's because you did something wrong. I mean, it might be, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's the universe looking out for you.
Crazy. So, what else do you like about? What else are you thinking about for getting control back?
Well, that's why. So I've invited Victoria Clooney and Megan Hubner to co-host the Real Estate Resilience Summit with me this year. And part of the reason that I selected these two wonderful ladies is because they have the same vision that I do, that people want to learn more about how to make better choices. And whether we like it or not, quite honestly, a lot of the times we do follow what's going on in the US. Maybe not politically, but when it comes to, businesses and investing, and there's some amazing people out there like Cody Sanchez talking about how to buy businesses and how to find value and that kind of stuff. So we have gone one step further this year with the summit, and we have included some speakers from US. Some of these people, they've never spoken in Canada before. So the information that we're hearing is new, and it's, what's up and coming in the world of not just real estate, but investing in general, in being an entrepreneur, in starting a business or buying a business or revamping a business. Most of it being real estate adjacent. But I really think, much like you have identified the issues with investing in Canada and you've pivoted to the US, I think there's going to be a lot of pivots coming. And I think that there are opportunities. I mean, I have clients who are looking at buying properties in Spain and Portugal,
Hmm.
um, buying in the US, buying in Costa Rica, Mexico. I think the internet has given us the opportunity to be able to identify places outside of just our own little niche here.
Hmm.
And it's exciting to meet other people and see what they're up to and look for the opportunities that potentially we can earn income and take control of our future.
Hmm. Yes, I'm kind of sick of what we deal with as Ontario landlords.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't like dumping on Ontario. Honestly, I'm grateful I'm here. It's just a fluke that I ended up being born to my parents, and they were in Canada, and
Hmm.
like I still consider myself lucky to be here in Canada, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the place where it's the best for me to be in charge of my future.
Hmm. I'll also qualify that with just with the assets that you and I have purchased over our time, and also the time we were born. Generally, our generation has done very well, and I admit that completely. Which is
Mhm.
why when people say, are you moving to the States?" Like then when they ask me that, and my answer, I want to share it here publicly, is I don't have to, because I made the right decisions along the way to play this game, right? So I can afford to live here. Cherry and I can afford to live here. Our businesses operate here. I don't have to go. But if I was 20 years old knowing what I know and no kids, I'd be doing everything I could to leave this country. That's just me, right?
But I don't know that US is the answer either, to be perfectly honest, because
I'm not saying it
I
is.
mean, the US to me right now is kind of a scary place. Like my husband travels a lot. He spends a lot of
Hmm.
time in the US. And, he was talking about one of the hotels he stayed at. I think it was in West Virginia.
Hmm.
And there was huge fences around the hotel and like armed guards
Hmm.
in a hotel
Hmm.
in the US. I mean, when he goes to Egypt, there's armed guards at the pyramids.
Yeah,
They're not around the hotels.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like the US has some and they're so divided. I don't know that the US is the answer either.
It's a big country though.
It is a big country. And quite honestly, I would like to just go in the middle of nowhere and be left alone to do my thing. That would make me really happy. But
And you could buy land a lot cheaper like that in the States. You and I have had discussions about it. You could probably buy like 200 acres. So you wouldn't
yeah.
have to deal with any people. And you probably pay like less than $500,000 for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Right?
land is so cheap. I mean, I look at the parcels of property we'd like to buy, and we're well into northern Ontario to be able to buy the size of land that we'd like to buy.
Yeah, and the black flies will eat you for half the year. So, or the polar bears will cure. I'm kidding about the polar bears. But
Yeah.
yeah, there is no perfect, and I say that I've been saying that regularly as well. It's my belief like if you can afford it, I think two homes is the ideal, right? One place to live during our winters when it's warm,
Mhm.
where it's warmer, if that's your preference. But
Yeah.
I was watching the surfing of the Olympics over the weekend, and like that looks so hard. I'd rather snowboard than drink salt water and get smoked by waves. so so again, point is, there's no perfect. I do believe, just me personally, that we'll probably end up
Mhm.
snowbirding somewhere else for the winters and still returning to Canada for our summers, which are absolutely lovely here.
Yeah. I mean, I look at, Europe and Spain and some of the countries over there, and their food is so much healthier. It's so
Hmm.
much less processed. Their lifestyles are so much healthier. Their populations, live longer with less health issues. I mean, I look at that and I go, What are we doing over here? We've got all the money and we've got lots more independence than a lot of other countries, and
Hmm.
yet these are some of the issues that we're having. We got the terrific obesity rates and all the other health issues that we've got.
Yeah, when I was in Muskoka, we were averaging well over 10,000 steps just staying at the YMCA camp because it was a hike. Wherever you went, it was a hike. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think Seth Ferguson has the right answer. He's one of the people I've talked to and done podcasts with, and he's on his treadmill the entire day,
genius.
just walking away on his treadmill. I think that's the way to go for those of us who are stuck in offices and on Zoom for most of the day.
He spends a lot of time in Florida and Texas too.
But it's about creating that life that we want, right?
Mhm.
And I think sometimes there's what we think we want, and then there's what we need.
But I think you need to explore a lot of that too, and part of it also is you need the money to do it, right? For anyone,
Yep.
yeah, I don't need to go into like money is the source of all evil.
We're trying to give some people something good to listen to, Erwin. We don't want to make everybody cry.
I think most people who listen to this show realize that that's not the truth. But money for some, like money will amplify people's personalities. If they were evil to start with, giving them more money will make them more evil, right? If you're a good
Yeah.
person armed with more money, then you tend to do more good things, right? At least that's like
Yeah.
how I like to
I
think. But
find my husband's a pretty cynical person, and he always says to me, "Follow the money." And at first I was like, that sounds so cold. But the more I talk to people who are struggling, and the more they tell me who they've spoken to. Are you gonna stand up now, are you? The more I talk to people, they've gone to people asking for advice, and the advice that's been given has been self-serving because it's, they're wondering about their insurance policy, so they talk to their insurance broker, and their insurance broker tells them they need more insurance because it
hmm.
benefits the broker for them to buy more insurance.
Hmm.
So it's just an example, but it's really hard for people to find out right now who to trust. And I
Mhm.
think ultimately what that means is you need to go inwards and you need to make sure that you are cultivating a voice of your own that is independent of everything else around you, that is independent of other people's opinions, that is independent of other people's, you can go to people and you can seek to learn from their experiences, but recognize that just because somebody did something and it turned out this way, there's no guarantees that it's going to turn out that way for you too. I think
Mhm.
it's important to know who you are as a person and what you're really looking for. And the only way you find that is by going inwards. You don't find that from outward stuff.
I'll disagree. When all these people were running to New Brunswick, I called you. I did not look inward. I don't have an answer. Why are all these people going to New Brunswick? I'm going to go to the most OG New Brunswick investor I know and call Elizabeth.
But
And then I had you on the
but I
show right immediately after to talk about it. Right?
but I think that if you had gone inwards, I think there was enough, you went inwards enough to realize that that might not be the answer.
Yes. It didn't pass the sniff test to run to New
There,
Brunswick.
exactly. So there was an initial something that happened there in that process for you that you said, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm not happy with this. Now I'm going to reach out and get an external. I'm going to talk to somebody. And I think that as investors, we have gotten bad at doing that. And we become so focused on missing out, so focused on opportunities passing us by that we do not listen to those red flags that our guts throw up.
Hmm.
That, they our guts are telling us something and we try and stuff that down and bury it. And there's a difference between analysis paralysis and legitimate red flags. And I
Hmm.
think that's where reaching out to somebody can help you differentiate between them.
Yeah, I have this friend who has capital to deploy, and he's looking for bigger stuff, right? And like the deals he was showing me, he was looking at, and he was like, "This doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right." Like that's fine. You can be patient. You don't have to deploy your
Yeah.
capital, right? Like versus like now is a good time to deploy. So my point to him was, there's no rush. Wait for the deal. You're in no hurry, right? And I think and to your point, like FOMO investing. Like so many people are afraid of missing this wave. And I'm not,
Yep.
I'm guilty of it too. My timing of buying cryptos was horrible. That's why I'm negative. The fact that I'm negative on my cryptos tells people a lot about how bad my timing was. But again, my point is, they were small bites. My point though is that I made small bites, right? Versus
Yep.
there are some folks who invested their life savings into some of these gurus for FOMO, and now that money's gone. It's crazy out there.
Yeah. And I think diversity is something that we're not counting on as well. If you have $50,000 with the world the way that it is, you can buy a little bit of gold and silver. You can do a little bit of, like Addie, for example, invest in real estate in a smaller capacity. You can
Mhm.
invest in some businesses in a smaller capacity. And you can give things a try and see what works and then analyze what works and lean a little more into that. There is nothing that says that in order to invest in real estate, you need to have $1 million and you need to go out and buy a big building.
Right. Yeah, I'll just throw out there that I only need 76,000 US to close on my house in San Antonio. Right.
Yeah.
And then for context, that's why when people ask me, should I do a duplex conversion or a garden suite? Well, that was both cost way more money than me just buying a house in the States.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, you don't need a lot of money to do it. You don't need to do everything. And yeah. I'm sure you're gonna cover
No.
this all at Real Estate Resilience Summit. What are you gonna cover? First of all, it's a 3 day event, is it not? 4 day?
It's 2 days. It's 2 days. We found the first year was 3 days, and people were like, I'm exhausted. How am I supposed to go back to work?
Mm-hmm.
So we brought it down to 2 days. It's 100% virtual. We have a fantastic platform. So even if you can't make a session in real time, you can go back and watch it. There's for 30 days, everything is still live on the platform. It allows you to connect and network unlike anything I've ever seen. So you can go in and connect with the speakers, and we are so honored that you are going to be one of our speakers talking
Yes.
about, your transition into investing in the US, some of your key learnings, and what you need to know and start thinking about when you're investing in other markets. Um, and so let me see, what are the other benefits? Oh, we do speed networking. So you'll have the opportunity to connect with people. This will be, of course, people are now attending are across Canada and the US. So you'll have the opportunity to build your network, potentially find partners, find investors, learn from people who are doing the types of deals and the types of things that you want to do. So you can connect with them live on the platform. We have a speaker expo. So all the speakers who are joining us are going to have gifts for all of our attendees, and then you'll be able to connect live with them as well and take advantage of the opportunity to actually connect with some of these people. And like I said, some of our speakers, they're US based. Even if you message them on social media, you probably wouldn't get a response. Whereas in the summit, it's a more intimate group, it's smaller, and it's really about what do we need to know as entrepreneurs? How do we buy a business? How do we invest in business? How do we grow a business? We focused a lot this year on financials because we want people to understand how to do proper due diligence. So we have Cherry, who's going to be on talking about, of course, taxation. We have David Richter on talking about how to actually run a profitable real estate business. When do you get paid? How do you know it's okay to pay yourself? Um, and then we just have it's business and real estate mixed. So if you are someone who wants to learn how to run a real estate business, a real estate adjacent business, how to invest in a business, buy a business, this is 100% the best place to spend 2 days. It's the last weekend in September. Regular tickets right now are, I think they're 247, and then VIP is 297. But with the VIP ticket, you get 3 accountability sessions with Victoria, Megan, and myself as well.
Well, that's good value.
And we're working on an extra special bonus for the VIPs.
Possibly an in-person component for the in-person VIPs.
It could be. We're talking about that.
We're talking about it. And I have to say, that's tremendous value that you're offering.
Thank you. I wanted to be able to provide, and this has always been my vision with the summit as well, even when Corey and I have done it the last couple of years. I want to provide people with high quality information for an affordable price that they might not have been able to do otherwise, because I don't want cost to be a barrier. And I don't want people to think that they have to have tens of thousands of dollars to learn how to do things properly. So at the end, this is not a big sales pitch. These speakers are not paid to be here. At the end, they get a couple of minutes to say, hey, I have, this option if you want to connect with me or if you want to buy something. But the vast majority of the presentations from each speaker is quality information and content. It's not sales.
Mhm. And you vetted each of these vendors, each and speakers.
Oh, absolutely. Like we literally start with hundreds of potential people at the beginning of the year, and we spend a ton of time talking to people and saying, what information do you want right now? What do you need? What is missing from the marketplace right now? What questions do you have? And then every single year, we curate and cultivate the content of the summit to be the questions that people are asking. And we're finding more and more people right now are frustrated with real estate. They're chasing their tails. They can't find deals where the numbers actually work and make sense. So a lot of us are pivoting to this idea of how do I generate income, not just from real estate, not just by buying a property, but how can we create something like I have with my commercial building where I can use real estate to make money, to actually drive income.
Hmm. Yeah, people like deals are out there. People just work way
Yeah.
harder to find them.
You do. And so this is where networking comes in, right?
Absolutely. And then you and I were talking before we were recording about how people are going quiet as well. And people were messaging me about it as well because I posted something on my Instagram stories last night about I think a lot of people, real estate professionals will struggle in Canada,
Yes.
especially if they sell real estate investments.
Yep. It's I think it's a space that is it's become a tough place to be. I think people are lacking energy. I think people are feeling kind of down and they're feeling scared. I mean, there are some people out there who are just doing their own thing and rocking it, and I have, so much admiration for them.
Hmm.
And I think that there's a portion of the population that are having a really hard time right now,
Hmm.
and I'm happy to support those people.
Yeah, like again, my several of my past guests are doing fantastic. So I don't want to be all doom and gloom. Like I just had Marty
Yes,
and Amanda and Marty Gordon on my show. They're doing great. Just had Kelly Caldwell on my show. She's doing great. I
she's
had Victoria
awesome.
Clooney, right? I had Spencer and Ashley. Like there are ways to be fine at this, uh,
Mhm.
but I think one of the things that makes them all what the commonality between all of them is that they didn't try to go crazy scale at the beginning
Yep.
or
I
ever
think,
all really.
and absolutely. And I think, I don't know all of your guests really well, but I look at the people you named and they all have a business component to what they're doing. Victoria, 100% is business focused.
Hmm.
So it's not just about I'm buying an apartment building and sitting on it like a chicken with an egg and waiting for it to hatch.
Yeah, she's giving
It's
away.
I'm
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm actively involved. I'm figuring out, at the very least, if I was buying an apartment building right now, I'd have short, mid, and long-term rentals in there. I'd have the three different types of income so that I had control over at least a portion of the building.
Yeah, it's scary out there.
But in order to do that, you need to have a team, right? You don't want to be in there cleaning every Friday afternoon when someone leaves. So you need to know how to build a team, and you're back to your systems and processes to build an effective business.
Yes, and then again, I categorize that as active business, active investing. So
I
again, I
don't know.
think everyone. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
kind of think investors have been sold a bill of goods with the idea that it's
Yeah,
passive.
yeah.
Like, let's call it what it really is.
Yeah, I
There's
even have
like,
I have challenges with that. I like to say as passive as it gets, because that's closer to a proper description.
yeah,
Depending for like what I do, like with my duplexes in Hamilton, for example, it's as passive as it gets. No, I'm not doing anything really that active, but I still have to check in on it once in a while, once every quarter or 6 months, or dealing with talking to tenants, talking to property managers. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so I
Well, you have
am
to
some
know,
involvement.
at the very least, you have to know what your property manager's doing to
Hmm.
be able to see if they're doing a good job. Are they
Yeah,
worth the money? Are they taking care of your property?
yeah.
I'd love to get you to weigh in on, do you think if the government changes over at the next election, do you think they're going to do away with the increase in the capital gains on the sale of properties? So are people better off holding off? If they're thinking about selling right now, are they better off holding off to see?
That's what I'm doing because with the whole capital rate inclusion thing, there are some good things to it, but I generally think it's bad because the way the system was set up was for everyone to invest in real estate. It was just
Mhm.
a no-brainer to let everyone invest in real estate, including your principal residence, because it's tax-free.
Mm.
The downside of that is all these wonderful companies that are starting up, how do they raise capital when they're competing in the real estate market?
Mhm.
And then now with this capital rate inclusion, why not the distinction between real estate versus investing in a Canadian business?
Mm.
Why are you punishing people from investing in a Canadian business? Right? Why is it not a distinction? Government taxes are generally incented for you to do the right thing. What is the best for society? And the best thing for
Yep.
society is that we, people like you and I, who have capital, invest in small businesses. But why would we when
Yep.
we're taxed the same rate as our real estate with the new inclusion rates, right? So I don't know what the government's thinking. I'm gonna guess the conservatives will do something to fix some of these things to make it more make it do more of the things it's intended to do, right? Stop making real estate the best investment there is in Canada, and to do more to support small business in Canada.
Yeah, that would be a really nice thing to see, I think.
Yeah, it just makes sense, right? Because by supporting small business, that means more investment will stay here in Canada when we grow homegrown more of our own businesses, and then we create more employment.
Mhm.
right?
And what do you think is going to happen in the real estate market in the next couple of years?
I think that has no choice but to go up with the way things are with the immigration. I think the number I saw was we had 200,000 new Canadians in the first 6 months of this year. Maybe not new Canadians, but we have 200,000 new people in the country. So,
Hmm.
and I think the number was we had 36,000 new housing completions, and they're primarily apartments. so, so the imbalance is still there. But the continued problem will be just negative cash flow. Inflation's really harming landlords. I
Hmm.
don't see how that self corrects to make the market the way it used to be in terms of investor appetite. I don't know how it improves. And especially when you throw out my messaging about investing in the States, I don't see how logically an investor would choose a condo or a duplex in Canada over an income property in the States. Just purely logic to me. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. How tough is it to get your money back up across the border?
Haven't done it myself personally. Like I said, one of the best wealth hacks anyone can ever do is marry their accountant. So that's more her problem. But again, end of the day, the overall tax implication is my tax is the same. There is no tax saving while I remain Canadian.
Hmm.
So as long as you're willing to pay tax, you can have your money. But the way it is right now, again, based on my situation, I'm probably just going to leave the money there, and my intention is to grow the portfolio.
Love it.
Yeah, and again, I'm in the States almost once a quarter now. So if I'm going to spend the money, I'll just spend it when I'm there.
Good for you. Well, congratulations on closing on your first property in the US.
Yeah, funness. I can't wait to share more about it. Because it's incredibly easy compared to anything I've ever done before. Yeah, and I think that's the way things are going. I think being away from long-term rentals makes a lot of sense and almost across Canada.
Yeah.
Cash flows matters more than ever since capital gains are being taxed more. So I might as well earn cash flow instead, focus more on cash
Yep.
flow. Remove yourself from risk from landlord tenant board. So generally that means getting away from long-term rentals. So yeah.
I keep thinking the government's going to wake up and realize that this is what's happening, that landlords are leaving en masse.
I don't, based on legislation and taxation, it's what they want. And
Interesting.
generally, I find when you go against the government, you're generally going to be in trouble. So just go with the government, get a government job, get a federal government job, or invest elsewhere. That's what the government wants based on taxation. For my experience, for where I invest, like
Hmm.
Ontario is Doug Ford, conservative government, yet our rental increase, allowed rental increase is 2.5%, the lowest in the country, under conservative government.
And that's the maximum that it can be
Yeah,
because they put a cap on it.
yeah, it's a cap on it, and that's the lowest in the country for allowable rent increase. And that's under conservative, and again, and we have a liberal government, and Toronto has an NDP mayor, and it's not political. We have problems everywhere, but
Yeah,
across the board, it doesn't seem like they like landlords.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So again, I think naturally it makes sense to divest from long-term rentals in Ontario, largely in other places as well. I was talking to a developer just before this call, and like, I wish you all the luck, developer, because we need more housing here.
Yeah.
But he too is looking to divest his long-term rentals here in Ontario and diversify to the States. So again, and that's a real estate professional with 10 years experience. So I think it's just going to be the continued trend within our community.
Interesting. Well, perhaps that will translate into some opportunities for newer, younger people who want to take over and do some management here in Ontario. And for those of us who want to go in other directions, I'm so excited for the summit.
Yeah, yeah, and
Connect
that's
with
what I
other
love about your
people who want
summit
to do that.
is there's lots of options out there. It's just people need to know who to listen to. There are no, as far as we know, there's no speakers who are going bankrupt on your stage. You're taking down all their investor money with them. Oh, so sad out there.
No, I try really hard to make sure that people are walking the talk and that they have a tremendous amount of integrity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then it's just very simple. Like just from observation, anyone who started investing before the last 5 years generally have done quite well, and they're still just fine.
Yeah.
So it's not all doom and gloom of folks out there. There's actually lots of positives out there. It's just, that old saying, you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with. And like a client of mine, I told her, like, because she was in one of these communities with a lot of folks who are bankrupt. I said, you need to network with people outside of that network,
Oh, yes.
right?
Yeah, you need other opinions, other perspectives, other ideas. You need to spend time with people who are doing things the right way. And you know what? Slow and steady, it's not sexy, but slow and steady is not a bad thing in real estate. Like, we need to bring back the popularity of 1 or 2 properties a year.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that you complete your renovation project and
Mm-hmm.
you are repositioned before you move on to your next one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what's killing people. That's what's
Mm-hmm.
killing some of the really big people, is they're buying too many projects. They're trying to execute too many things at once. They've got too many renos going on.
Mm-hmm.
Then the government changes the criteria for being able to refinance, and then they're getting stuck with the money, with the high cost money.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of that money is hard money. Some of these investors have hard money loans. They call it private money. I don't know how we ever got away from the term hard money
Yeah.
loans, but they are hard money loans.
Yeah.
All right. Well, oh wait, where can people learn more about the Real Estate Resilience Summit?
I think it's, can I give you the email address and you can post it in the show notes? I want to double check. I just had a brain gap. I think it's realestateresilience.ca. But there's the website, and then of course we are on Facebook and Instagram as well. And we would absolutely love to have you join us. If you can't make it for the whole weekend, you can go back and watch the recordings for the next 30 days on the platform. If you're a VIP, you will be given lifetime access to the recordings. And of course, all the contact information for all the speakers, and then all the free gifts as well.
Yeah,
There it is.
realestateresilience.ca. Saturday, September 28th, 10 oh, the West Coast people will appreciate that. 10:30 a.m. Eastern time start.
Yeah, we did it specifically for those West Coast people, including Megan Hovner, who is a West Coast, or was a West Coast person.
I've done so many events at like 9 a.m. on Saturdays, and my Vancouverite followers do not appreciate.
No, we
Getting up at
love
6 a.m. on a Saturday.
we love our West Coast people, so we want to make sure we include them.
Yes, because they have many of their own challenges as well.
Yeah.
I've seen how expensive it is to develop. I forget which city I was watching on social media. The gentleman was sharing how deals don't pencil. They're looking to build 1,200 units of purpose-built rental housing, and they're going through how difficult it is based on the costs. Largely, they're talking about development charges.
Yeah,
and they're talking about
well,
like 10,000-20,000 per unit for development charges.
well, where was I reading? Anyways, 30% of the cost of building is taxes and fees, and those are all being passed on directly to the buyers. So if the government waived some of the taxes and fees, even a 15% drop in the new housing
Mm-hmm.
would make it much more affordable. But they don't
Which
want
to
to
me
talk
is
about
bonkers when the government's, at least the municipal government, collects property taxes after it's
that.
built. Like, you have
Mhm.
this ongoing revenue stream. Why do you have to gouge them up front as well?
Yeah,
Like, you and
that's
I
a
are
great point.
investors. There's so much we will do and invest to have that recurring stream of revenue.
So much.
Anyways, oh, you have Daniel Foch speaking. That's super cool.
Yes, he's going to talk about what he sees coming up for the next little bit.
Fantastic. David Richter, I don't know him.
He wrote oh my goodness. Profit First for Real Estate Investors. That's his book.
Oh, I haven't read that one. I've read Profit First.
Yes, so he created one specifically for, obviously, real estate investors. So he's going to talk about how we should be allocating our money, and how to know, like, how to run numbers.
That's super cool. Yeah, because I really like the Profit First book. Cherry lives
Yes.
by it. Yeah, all my
Yes.
accounts are set up that way.
So that's a great endorsement then. If Cherry, the accountant, the expert accountant for real estate investors, loves what he said, and what he's written, then having him on, I think, will be exciting. Daniel Kong is from Hawaii, and he's going to come on and talk about how he was able to leave his job. He does flipping and wholesaling. Um, Janelle Wilson, who is going to be sort of our first external speaker. She is going to be talking about Section 8 housing and basically how she has built a tremendous business with Section 8 housing in the US.
Fabulous.
But
Section 8 is available through Share as well.
yes, yeah, absolutely. But she's talking about how to take adversity and turn it into opportunity, which I think is a really important message for a lot of people right now, because we faced a lot of adversity. And how do we find the opportunity in that?
I'm a big fan of Glenn Sutherland as well. I love his tell it like it is
Isn't he hilarious?
presentations.
We thought you and Glenn would be amazing to share because you guys are both really real. You both share like, this is where, I've struggled, this is where it's been hard. This is what I've learned. And that's what we really want the summit to be, is not the razzle dazzle. This is not sales, this is not marketing, this is really what you need to hear, what you need to know.
Yeah. When Glenn was on my show, he was very frank about how challenging his business is, how he earns his equity split of the deals.
Yeah, he's been around a long time too. He's got a lot of integrity too, I think.
Fabulous. Yeah, he keeps it real. He's pretty transparent. Like he's pretty transparent on the show. Like, this is my loss rate. Like this is, and that's how it is. And my thing is, if anyone ever tells you they never lose money, they either haven't been in business long enough or they're lying.
Yeah. I have a client who's a really successful flipper. He does really well in addition to his other investment models. And he did 8 flips last year. And he said he didn't make money on every single one of them. But what happened was that the volume was high enough that overall he did really well.
Yeah.
But he said, if I had only done 1 or 2 flips, then I could have been underwater. But it was because I had the higher volume that I did so well.
Yeah, and part of that's being resilient.
Exactly, right? It's knowing that there are no guarantees that everything will turn out the way that you think it will or the way that you hope it will. So you've got to have a couple of backup plans in your pocket.
Yeah, you have to have the resiliency to keep going, because there will be losers, and your financial plans have to account for losers. Yep. Is this the Melissa? Melissa Kruper?
That is, but she is Everline Social is what you're looking for. Okay. Is her company.
Got it.
Yeah, so she's going to talk about marketing and how to brand ourselves, how to communicate with people, what's working in the world of marketing right now. Because even if we're not using marketing to attract new people into our world, the reality is, as an investor, it's a source of credibility. And if you are not online and people can't look you up and they can't do their research, then unfortunately you don't necessarily have the credibility that people are looking for. Take a look at Janelle Wilson there, session 2. She's the one who's doing the Section 8 stuff. She's doing some really cool stuff.
That's her?
Yep, that's her.
Fabulous. Yeah, I have friends with a lot of Section 8 houses.
I admire her so much. She's another one who's just like, tells it like it is. I think we need more honesty in our world right now.
So for those who don't know, like, Elizabeth and I talk a lot in the background that I'm sure many people would love to be privy to our conversations. But yeah, and part of the reality is out there is that those who pay for stages get it, right? Those who pay to be on other people's platform, often they're paying for it or they're giving up percentage of the sales, so they're paying for it. Not always necessarily of the best people making it onto people's stages, other stages, not this one.
Which, if that's your business model, that's fine. But I think there needs to be a little bit of transparency about it too.
Oh my. Oh my. She does auctions? That's amazing.
She's got some really cool stories.
Oh, sorry, for the listeners' benefit, I'm sharing my screen. We're actually on Janelle Wilson's Instagram, and pictured is what looks like a bunch of row houses that are boarded up, and there's literally a power shovel bulldozer on the front lawn of one of the properties. For the folks who don't know, we do share the recordings on YouTube, so you can check us out there as well if you want to see it, follow along with the visuals. Anyone else we should cover? Do you have time for this? It's like we just
Yeah,
we just forgot about Michael Pawnee. Like we don't talk about him anymore.
who can forget about Michael? He brings so much value, but everybody knows Michael. Bethany LaFlamme is another one that you might want to look at. Again, these are people who are really crushing it in the US, and I feel like we can learn a lot from them. So let's bring them to the Canadian audience. Let's learn from them.
Conscious wealth creator.
Mm-hmm.
How
She
do you
does some
know these
really cool
folks?
things with capital. Sorry?
How do you know these folks?
Some of these are Victoria. Some of these are people that I follow on social media, and I learn from them. And
Mhm.
then Victoria, from her time as with Invest Her, she helped to organize the international Invest Her event.
Amazing.
So she met a lot of these fantastic women like Bethany.
Amazing. Anyone else we should profile? You have time? Do we talk about tarot?
I have time. Mandy McAllister's another one.
Mandy. Buying. Oh, I love it. Buying a business. Maybe she'll
Yeah.
convince you. Oh, seems like it's a popular name. There's an actress named Andy McAllister.
Oh, yes. Go
Is
Abundance,
this
I think
her?
is her.
Go Abundance?
Yeah. And I
Interesting.
think she's official Mandy McAllister.
Oh, super cool. Go Abundance women. Because I've heard of Go Abundance for men. Not that it's
Yeah,
called that. It's just called Go Abundance.
of course.
And what's she going to talk about?
Um, she's going to talk about valuing businesses, finding opportunities, what you need to know to start thinking about buying a business.
Fantastic. And again, she's American?
Yes, she's American.
Super cool.
So we're about 50-50 in terms of split between Canadians and US. Um,
Oh, I like that.
and I
Set peace
think
of mind
it's
as your highest goal, then organize your life around it. I think I'm
not
finally
awesome.
doing that. Yeah. Because you and I talk about it as well. Anecdotally, I noticed that health among my real estate friends and entrepreneur friends is lower than that of my 9-to-5 friends.
Yeah.
So while it looks sexy to be a real estate investor and an entrepreneur, underneath the covers, generally they have much more stressful lives.
Yeah. It's funny because July, I committed to walking at least 10,000 steps a day.
Love it.
And there were only 2 days where I missed. One day I had a migraine, and one day I was on the road and traveling. But I feel different. My body feels different literally after 30 days of
Mhm.
hitting 10,000 steps a day.
Mhm.
That's it.
Mhm. Are you doing that first thing or just all through the day?
I generally do one walk in the morning, and if it's a shorter walk, then I'll do another one after dinner. And now I'm putting in strength training as well. I bought an X3 system at the encouragement of one of my clients who has a health and wellness business. So I will be starting to do that as of this week, later this week.
What, X3? Sorry, what's that?
The X3 system. So I'm not an expert on it, but it is super cool because it literally takes you 10 minutes a day, and it works with your body to so one day is push, one day is pull, and it's with bands, a bar and bands.
Love it.
And
Is
again,
this it?
that's it. I don't even know how to pronounce the guy's name, but it's super science based, and it's about muscle fatigue with less damage to your joints. I'm all about less damage to my joints. Is it John Jaquish? Jaquish? I don't
I'm
know
not
how he
even gonna
pronounces his
try.
name.
I'll post the URL in the show notes.
But this is part of the power of networking, right?
Mhm.
Is that, through networking, I found Megan and Victoria to do the summit with. And then through networking, we found and vetted all of our speakers. And through networking, so Rachel Oliver introduced me to my client who has the cryo therapy business, which I've started focusing on my health and well-being with him. He's the one who actually recommended this to me.
Mhm.
And the cryotherapy that I've been doing has been amazing to help with my arthritis in my hips. And it's all the positive changes that I've made have been as a result of the people that I'm spending time with and my networking.
You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Absolutely.
And I bet those people with you and Christian. Amazing.
Absolutely.
That
This
sounds
has been
awesome.
such a pleasure, Erwin. It is always so nice to connect with you. And it's interesting to hear that our journeys are sort of, even though we help people in different ways and we're focusing on different things, independently, we've sort of ended up at the same place.
Yeah. Boo long-term rentals.
I think my husband would have told you he was there about 5 years ago, but you know,
Yeah, and then slow and boring. It's okay. It's funny because I've been criticized for calling things boring. Let's just call it one property at a time.
one property a year can change your life.
Yes.
Remind yourself of that.
And a vacant property per year will change your life as well for the wrong ways. So don't forget that, folks. Vacancy to me is like poison to a portfolio. I despise it.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel the same?
I don't know. It depends. I mean, I'm heading to the landlord tenant board in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
There's
there
good
are times
vacancy
where
and there's bad vacancy.
there are times where I'm very grateful to have a vacant property, in all honesty.
Yes. I'm my lowest paying rent tenant is giving up his unit, so I'm grateful for that vacancy as well. Yes, there is good vacancy, but
Yeah.
systemic vacancy, not good.
And I feel very fortunate that, having been around as long as I have and having been to the landlord tenant board, I'm comfortable representing myself. But I know that for a lot of investors, they would have endured months and months of non-payment of rent,
Mhm,
potential damages, and then they'd have to go out and spend at least $800 hiring a paralegal to represent them at the landlord tenant board.
mhm. Oh, it's sad.
I already
It's
know there's a paralegal on the other side. I've already been given it that from the community legal help. So I mean, they have a paralegal. They have all the legal advice they need. And I mean, I prepared my document, my evidence, and it was 160 pages.
this is the one that's disruptive to the other tenants?
No, this is a different one. This
Oh.
is one who's actually out of the unit already, and she brought was a T2 where she's saying that we ignored her and we didn't do any maintenance or anything. So 160 pages of all the back and forth, the conversations, the work orders, the maintenance requests, the please stop harassing our staff when they're in the property. Yeah, that's August 22nd.
So what does
If
she
you have
want?
nothing to do,
But she's already out of the unit. What does she want?
just wants money.
She's just okay. How much? How much of that this is worth it?
I think she's asking for, I don't know, maybe let's say $3,000 or something.
Yeah, be kidding me. Because she gets free legal aid, that's why. And this doesn't
I've
happen in
already
landlord-friendly USA.
I've already sent an email to the paralegal and told them all the mistakes with all the documentation that was filed, including that her husband's name is nowhere on the lease. He's not a tenant. He's not someone that we recognize. That she has sent all the documentation to the property management company and not to the legal owner of the building, despite knowing who the legal owner of the building is, as per the lease, the rent increases, I've sent her documentation of all of the complaints that she made, and where we finally had to say to her, you're not allowed to be in the premises when we're there completing work or repairs because your harassment of our staff has been so bad.
Mhm,
And they have not withdrawn the thing. So they're actually taking up time at the landlord and tenant board. Somebody else with a valid issue could be
mhm,
heard, because all
mhm.
that's going to happen is I'm going to go on the 22nd, and the The member's going to look at it and say, this is not a valid document. The information on it is completely incorrect. You've named the wrong parties. You don't even have the owner of the property here. Like, this is not valid.
My word.
And that would save everybody time.
God, I love the system.
I don't know. I'll just show up with popcorn. That's all.
Over Zoom.
Over Zoom. And quite frankly, up north, we were over Zoom long before COVID. So
crazy times. One last time, realestateresilience.ca.
Thank you. We're so looking forward to having you and Glenn and everyone else join us last weekend of September. It's truly going to be life-changing.
Yep. Saturday, September 28th and Sunday, 29th. See you all there.
100% virtual. So I'll see you there too.
And affordable. Thanks again, Elizabeth. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Erwin. Always great to see you. Take care.
Thank you for watching. If you want to learn how to invest in real estate from scratch, my team teaches beginners how to use the #1 investment strategy that I personally use in a virtual free training class every month. Go to investortraining.ca/YouTube to register for our next class. The link's also in the description as well. I publish at least 2 to 3 videos a week here, so subscribe if you want to keep learning from seasoned investors like myself and my guests. And if you're just starting out, feel free to ask questions and comment below, and I do the best to answer each of those comments and questions myself. Again, if you're ready to learn the nitty-gritty about real estate investing from a professional investor, register for our next virtual class. That's at investortraining.ca/YouTube. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video.